You know what nobody talks about enough? The fact that most people spend their entire lives waiting for someone else to love them the way they should have been loving themselves all along. You're out here looking for validation, for acceptance, for someone to finally see your worth, when the real problem is that you don't see it yourself. And that's not a small issue. That's the issue. That's the foundation. Everything else is built on. Let me be direct with you. If you don't love yourself, nothing else in your life will ever feel complete. Not success, not money, not relationships, not accomplishments, nothing. Because you'll always be carrying this emptiness inside, this void that you keep trying to fill with external things, external people, external achievements, and it never works. It can't work. Because the problem isn't out there, it's in here. It's in how you see yourself, how you treat yourself, how you talk to yourself when nobody else is listening. Think about how much energy you've wasted trying to prove your worth to people who don't even matter. Think about how many times you've changed yourself, shrunk yourself, apologized for existing just to make others comfortable. Think about how many nights you've spent replaying conversations, analyzing every word, wondering if you said the right thing, if you're enough, if they like you. All of that exhaustion, all of that anxiety, it stems from one source. You don't believe you're worthy as you are. Most people go through life thinking self-love is selfish. They think it's narcissistic. They think it means being arrogant or self-centered. And that misunderstanding costs them everything. It costs them their peace, their confidence, their ability to set boundaries, their capacity to choose healthy relationships. Because when you don't love yourself, you accept treatment you shouldn't accept. You tolerate disrespect. You stay in situations that drain you. You say yes when you mean no. You shrink yourself to make others comfortable. And all of that happens because deep down, you don't believe you deserve better. The programming started early. Maybe you grew up in a house where love felt conditional, where you had to earn approval through achievement, good behavior, not causing problems, where mistakes were met with disappointment or anger instead of understanding, where your emotions were dismissed or minimized, where you learned that being valuable meant being useful, being perfect, being whatever others needed you to be. That taught you to constantly scan for what others want from you and mold yourself accordingly. It taught you that your natural self wasn't acceptable. Or maybe love was inconsistent, present sometimes, absent others, depending on factors you couldn't control or understand. That teaches a different lesson, but an equally damaging one. That you can't rely on connection. That you need to protect yourself by not needing too much, by staying small, by managing everyone else's emotions before attending to your own. Either way, you learn to abandon yourself, and you've been doing it ever since. This isn't about affirmations you say in the mirror once and forget. This isn't about bubble baths and face masks, though there's nothing wrong with those. This is about fundamentally changing the relationship you have with yourself. This is about becoming your own safe place, your own source of validation, your own greatest supporter. This is about looking at yourself with honesty and compassion and deciding that no matter what, you're going to be on your own side. You've spent enough time being your own worst critic. You've spent enough time tearing yourself down, doubting yourself, comparing yourself to others, waiting to be chosen, hoping someone else will finally make you feel worthy. That ends today. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because you can't build a meaningful life on a foundation of self-rejection. You can't create healthy relationships when you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself. You can't expect others to treat you with respect when you don't respect yourself. The cost of not loving yourself shows up everywhere. It shows up in the jobs you settle for, because you don't believe you're capable of more. It shows up in the relationships you stay in because you think this is the best you can get. It shows up in how you let people speak to you, how you speak to yourself, how you neglect your needs, how you abandon your dreams. It shows up in anxiety, in depression, in feeling lost, even when everything looks fine on the outside. Look at your life right now. Really look at it. How many decisions have you made in the past year that honored what you actually wanted versus what you thought you should want? How many times have you said yes when everything in you was screaming no? How many opportunities have you passed up because you didn't believe you deserved them? How many boundaries have you failed to set because you were afraid of being difficult, of being too much, of being alone? The pattern is everywhere. Once you start seeing it, you don't apply for the job because you assume you're not qualified enough. You don't leave the relationship that's hurting you because you're afraid you won't find better. You don't pursue your creative passion because you tell yourself it's not practical. You don't speak up when someone crosses a line because you don't want to make waves. You don't invest in your health, your growth, your dreams because some part of you doesn't believe you're worth the investment. Here's what most people don't realize. Self-love isn't something you find. It's something you build. Day by day, choice by choice, action by action. It's a practice, not a destination. It's showing up for yourself even when you don't feel like it. It's setting boundaries even when it's uncomfortable. It's choosing what's healthy over what's familiar. It's being honest with yourself even when the truth is hard to face. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to have to look at parts of yourself you've been avoiding. You're going to have to face the beliefs you've been carrying about your worth, your value, your deservingness. You're going to have to challenge the voice in your head that's been telling you you're not enough. You're going to have to stop seeking permission from others to take up space, to have needs, to prioritize yourself. But here's what's waiting for you on the other side of that discomfort. Freedom, real freedom. The freedom to be yourself without apology. The freedom to say no without guilt. The freedom to choose yourself without feeling selfish. The freedom to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you. The freedom to build a life that actually feels good, not just looks good. Self-love changes everything. It changes how you show up in the world. It changes what you tolerate and what you reject. It changes your standards, your boundaries, your decisions. It changes the quality of your relationships because you stop accepting crumbs and start requiring reciprocity. It changes your mental health because you stop being at war with yourself. It changes your future because you start making choices based on your worth, not your wounds. When you love yourself, you stop performing for approval. You stop contorting yourself to fit into spaces that weren't meant for you. You stop apologizing for your existence, for your needs, for taking up space. You become grounded in your own value, independent of external validation. And from that place, everything you build is more solid, more authentic, more sustainable. This script is going to walk you through what self-love actually means. Not the Instagram version, the real version. We're going to look at what's been blocking you from it. The beliefs you learned, the patterns you developed, the wounds you're still carrying. We're going to talk about self-compassion, about treating yourself the way you'd treat someone you genuinely care about. We're going to explore how to build self-trust through your actions, how to honor your body, how to validate your emotions. We're going to discuss how self-love transforms your relationships with others. And we're going to give you actual practices, real daily actions you can take to build this foundation. You don't need to wait until you're perfect to love yourself. You don't need to achieve certain things first. You don't need to fix everything about yourself. You need to decide that you're worthy of love right now, as you are with all your flaws and mistakes and imperfections. And then you need to start acting like someone who believes that, not because it feels natural at first, because it's the truth you're choosing to live by. The relationship you have with yourself is the longest relationship you'll ever have. It's the foundation of every other connection in your life. It determines your quality of life more than any external circumstance. And right now, you get to decide what that relationship looks like. You get to decide to stop abandoning yourself. You get to decide to start showing up for yourself. You get to decide that your worth is not negotiable. This is not going to be easy. Nobody's going to do it for you. There's no pill to take, no quick fix, no shortcut. This is daily work. This is choosing yourself over and over, even when the old patterns are pulling at you, even when it would be easier to fall back into familiar dysfunction, even when the people around you don't understand why you're changing. This is committing to yourself in a way you probably never have before. But it's possible. It's absolutely possible. And it's the most important work you'll ever do. Because from self-love flows everything else. Confidence, peace, healthy relationships, authentic success, genuine joy. Everything you've been searching for outside yourself becomes accessible when you build the foundation inside yourself. So let's get into this. Not surface level, deep, real. Because you deserve more than shallow advice. You deserve actual transformation. And that starts with learning to love yourself more than you've ever loved anyone else. Not in a selfish way, in a foundational way. In a way that allows you to finally become who you were meant to be. What self-love really means. Before we go any further, we need to get clear on what we're actually talking about. Because the term self-love has been watered down, commercialized, turned into something it was never meant to be. You see it on social media, attached to pictures of people in bathtubs with candles. And while there's nothing wrong with that, that's not what we're addressing here. We're talking about something much deeper, much more foundational, much more life-changing. Self-love is not about thinking you're better than everyone else. It's not about being arrogant or self-absorbed. It's not about ignoring your flaws or pretending you're perfect. Those are distortions, defenses that people use when they're afraid of being vulnerable enough to actually examine their relationship with themselves. Real self-love is about accepting yourself fully, not conditionally, not when you achieve something, not when you look a certain way, not when other people approve of you. Right now, as you are, with your strengths and your weaknesses, your successes and your failures, your light and your shadow. It's about looking at all of it and saying, this is me, and I'm not going to reject myself anymore. Let me be clear about something. Self-love is not the same as self-esteem. Self-esteem is how you evaluate yourself, how you measure your worth based on achievements, comparisons, external validation. It fluctuates. It goes up when things go well and down when they don't. Self-love is steadier. It's the unwavering commitment to treat yourself with kindness and respect, regardless of circumstances. It's the foundation that holds you, even when your self-esteem takes a hit. And it's definitely not narcissism. Narcissism is actually a defense against deep insecurity and shame. It's an inflated sense of superiority that requires constant validation from others. It lacks empathy, uses people, sees relationships as transactional. That's not self-love. That's self-obsession masking as confidence. Real self-love includes humility. It includes the ability to see your flaws clearly and still treat yourself with compassion. It includes empathy for others, because when you're not constantly trying to prove your worth, you have space to recognize the worth in everyone. Self-love is choosing yourself without guilt. It's understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup, that taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. It's recognizing that your needs matter, your feelings matter, your time matters, your energy matters. And it's making decisions that honor that truth, even when it disappoints others, even when it goes against what you were taught, even when it feels uncomfortable. It's about becoming your own safe place. Think about that for a moment. Most people spend their lives seeking safety in others, in relationships, in external circumstances. And when those things shift, they fall apart. But when you build self-love, you create internal safety. You become the person you can always count on. You become the one who doesn't abandon yourself when things get hard. You become your own foundation. Self-love is also about self-trust. It's keeping the promises you make to yourself. It's following through on your commitments to your own growth and well-being. Every time you say you're going to do something for yourself, and then you don't, you erode that trust. Every time you betray your own boundaries, ignore your own needs, break your own word, you teach yourself that you're not reliable. Self-love rebuilds that trust, one kept promise at a time. It includes forgiveness, not the kind where you excuse harmful behavior, yours or anyone else's. The kind where you recognize that you're human, that you've made mistakes, that you've hurt yourself and others, and you choose to learn and grow rather than stay stuck in shame. Shame keeps you small. Shame keeps you repeating the same patterns because you believe you don't deserve better. Self-love says, I messed up, I'm going to do better, and I'm still worthy of compassion. Here's what self-love looks like in practice. It's setting boundaries with people you care about because you care about yourself too. It's saying no to things that drain you even when saying yes would be easier. It's asking for what you need instead of expecting others to read your mind. It's walking away from situations and relationships that consistently harm you, even when it's painful, even when you're afraid of being alone. It's also how you talk to yourself when nobody's listening. The narrative running in your head all day. That's either building you up or tearing you down. Self-love is catching yourself in moments of harsh self-criticism and choosing a different voice. Not a fake positive voice that denies reality, but a compassionate voice that sees your struggles and responds with understanding rather than judgment. It shows up in how you treat your body, not based on how it looks, but based on what it does for you every single day. Your body is carrying you through life, keeping you alive, allowing you to experience everything you experience. Self-love is nourishing it, moving it, resting it, speaking to it with respect. It's rejecting the idea that your worth is tied to your appearance and embracing the truth that your body deserves care simply because it's yours. Self-love means honoring your emotional reality. It means allowing yourself to feel what you feel without immediately trying to fix it, suppress it, or judge it. Sadness, anger, fear, joy, all of it is valid. All of it is information. Self-love creates space for your full emotional experience and treats all of it with gentleness. And perhaps most importantly, self-love is a practice, not a feeling. You don't wait to feel love for yourself before you start acting with self-love. You act with self-love, and the feeling follows. You make choices that demonstrate respect for yourself. You protect your peace. You invest in your growth. You show up for yourself consistently. And over time, those actions reshape how you see yourself, how you experience yourself, how you feel about yourself. This is the foundation we're building. Not the shallow version sold to you in advertisements. The real version. The version that requires honesty, vulnerability, commitment. The version that actually changes your life because it changes you from the inside out. This is what it means to learn to love yourself more than anyone else. And everything else we discuss builds on this understanding. The barriers blocking your self-love. Now let's talk about why this is hard. Why you can't just decide to love yourself and have it happen overnight. There are real barriers, deep patterns, old wounds that stand between you and the self-love you deserve. And you can't dismantle what you don't acknowledge. So we're going to look at this honestly. First, there's what you learned growing up. Your relationship with yourself was shaped long before you knew what was happening. If you grew up in an environment where love was conditional, where you had to perform or achieve or behave a certain way to receive affection and approval, you internalized that. You learned that your worth is tied to what you do, not who you are. You learned that love has to be earned, that it can be taken away, that you're only valuable when you're useful or successful or pleasing. Maybe you were criticized more than you were encouraged. Maybe your mistakes were highlighted more than your efforts. Maybe your feelings were dismissed or minimized. Maybe you were compared to siblings, to other kids, to impossible standards. All of that taught you to see yourself through a critical lens, to focus on what's wrong rather than what's right, to believe that you're fundamentally not enough. Think about the messages you received, both explicit and implicit. When you came home excited about something and were told it wasn't that big a deal. When you expressed fear or sadness and were told to toughen up. When you made a mistake and it was treated as evidence of your inadequacy rather than a normal part of learning. When your boundaries were violated and you were told you were being dramatic for being upset. When your natural personality traits were criticized instead of celebrated. All of these experiences, repeated over years, created beliefs about yourself that you now carry as truth. You might believe you have to be perfect to be lovable. You might believe your needs are burdensome. You might believe your emotions are excessive. You might believe you have to constantly prove your value. These beliefs run deep, and they operate largely outside your conscious awareness, shaping your choices and self-perception automatically. Or maybe love wasn't conditional in your house, but it was inconsistent. Maybe the adults around you were dealing with their own pain, their own struggles, and couldn't show up for you the way you needed. Maybe you learned to make yourself small, to not have needs, to take care of others' emotions before your own. That creates a pattern where you abandon yourself to maintain connection with others, where your needs always come last, where you don't even know what you want anymore because you've spent so long focused on what everyone else wants. Inconsistent care teaches you that connection is unreliable, that you can't count on others, that the safest strategy is to need as little as possible. So you develop independence as a survival mechanism, but it's not healthy independence based on secure attachment. It's anxious independence, where you're desperately self-sufficient because you believe needing support means you'll be disappointed or abandoned. That makes receiving love difficult even when it's offered because you don't trust it will stay. These aren't excuses. This is context. Understanding where your patterns came from doesn't mean you're not responsible for changing them. It means you can have compassion for yourself while you do the work. It means you can stop blaming yourself for struggling with something you were never taught. Then there's the external validation trap. We live in a world that constantly tells you your worth comes from outside yourself, from how many likes you get, how successful you are, how you look, who wants you, what you own, what you achieve. And if you've built your sense of self on those external measures, self-love becomes almost impossible because external things are always changing, always uncertain, always dependent on factors outside your control. Social media has amplified this exponentially. You're constantly bombarded with other people's highlight reels, with curated versions of lives that make yours feel inadequate. You measure your worth by engagement metrics, by comparison to people you don't even know, by standards that are completely arbitrary. And every time you scroll, you're reinforcing the belief that your value is determined by external validation. When your worth is tied to achievement, what happens when you fail? When it's tied to appearance, what happens when you age? When it's tied to relationships, what happens when someone leaves? You crash because you've outsourced your value to things that were never meant to hold it. Self-love requires pulling that back inside. It requires deciding that your worth is inherent, that it doesn't fluctuate based on circumstances, that it's not something you earn or lose. Let's talk about the inner critic, that voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, smart enough, attractive enough, successful enough, the one that compares you to others and finds you lacking, the one that highlights every flaw, every mistake, every perceived weakness. That voice is loud and it's relentless, and for many people it's been running their internal dialogue for so long they don't even question it anymore. Here's what you need to understand about that voice. It's not telling you the truth. It's trying to protect you in the most dysfunctional way possible. Based on past experiences, usually from childhood, your psyche developed this harsh critic as a way to keep you safe. The logic, often unconscious, is this: if I criticize myself first, if I spot my flaws before anyone else does, if I keep myself in line, maybe I won't be rejected, abandoned, hurt. It's a defense mechanism, but it's causing more harm than whatever it's trying to protect you from. The inner critic often sounds like someone from your past. A parent, a teacher, a bully, someone whose voice got internalized and now operates as if it's your own. But it's not. It's an outdated defense system that worked when you were young and powerless, but doesn't serve you now. Recognizing this doesn't make it disappear, but it helps you create distance from it, to see it as a pattern rather than truth. Silencing that voice doesn't happen by arguing with it or trying to replace it with forced positivity. It happens by recognizing it for what it is, understanding where it came from, and consciously choosing a different narrative. It happens by developing a compassionate internal voice that sees your humanity, acknowledges your struggles, and responds with kindness rather than cruelty. Perfectionism is another massive barrier. And perfectionism isn't about having high standards or wanting to do well. It's the belief that you're only acceptable if you're flawless, that mistakes are evidence of fundamental inadequacy, that anything less than perfect is failure. Perfectionism makes self-love almost impossible because you're holding yourself to a standard no human can meet. You're constantly falling short in your own eyes, constantly disappointed in yourself, constantly feeling like you're not measuring up. Perfectionism shows up in procrastination because if you can't do something perfectly, you avoid doing it at all. It shows up in burnout because you push yourself beyond reasonable limits to meet impossible standards. It shows up in relationships because you can't be vulnerable or authentic when you're trying to maintain a flawless image. It shows up in decision paralysis because no option is perfect enough to choose. And underneath perfectionism is usually shame, the belief that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, that if people really knew you, they'd reject you, that you have to hide your imperfections to be loved. Shame thrives in secrecy and silence. It convinces you that you're uniquely flawed, that everyone else has it together except you, that you need to keep up appearances at all costs. Self-love requires bringing shame into the light, recognizing that imperfection is part of being human, that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. Unhealed wounds create barriers too. Trauma, betrayal, loss, rejection. These experiences leave marks, and if you haven't processed them, if you're still carrying the pain, it affects how you see yourself and what you believe you deserve. Maybe someone you trusted hurt you deeply, and now you don't trust yourself to make good choices. Maybe you were abandoned, and now you abandon yourself before others can. Maybe you experienced abuse and internalized the message that you're not worthy of respect or safety. Trauma particularly affects your ability to love yourself because it disrupts your sense of safety in the world and in your own body. When your nervous system is stuck in survival mode, when you're hypervigilant or dissociated or constantly braced for danger, it's incredibly difficult to extend compassion and care to yourself. Your system is focused on surviving, not thriving. Healing from trauma is often necessary before self-love becomes fully accessible. These wounds need attention, not in a way that keeps you stuck in victim mentality, but in a way that acknowledges what happened, processes the pain, and consciously works to not let past harm determine present worth. You can't love yourself while simultaneously believing you deserve to be hurt. You can't love yourself while carrying someone else's cruelty as truth about who you are. Fear is a barrier too. Fear of being selfish, fear of disappointing others, fear of what happens if you actually start prioritizing yourself. Many people, especially those socialized to be caregivers, fear that self-love means becoming cold, uncaring, unavailable. That's not true. Self-love doesn't make you less capable of loving others. It makes you more capable because you're loving from fullness rather than emptiness, from choice rather than desperation. There's also fear of the unknown. Your current relationship with yourself, even if it's painful, is familiar. You know how to operate from a place of self-rejection. You know how to people-please, how to shrink yourself, how to ignore your needs. Changing that pattern means stepping into unfamiliar territory. It means not knowing how relationships will shift when you start setting boundaries. It means uncertainty about who you'll be when you're not constantly trying to earn worth. That fear can keep you stuck in patterns that hurt you, simply because they're known. Comparison is a constant barrier in our current culture. Social media has made it easier than ever to measure your life against everyone else's highlight reel. And when you're constantly comparing, you're constantly finding yourself lacking. You're focused on what you don't have, rather than what you do. You're measuring your worth by external metrics that have nothing to do with your actual value as a person. The comparison trap is insidious, because there will always be someone who appears to have more, be more, do more. You can be objectively successful and still feel inadequate because you're comparing to someone even more successful. You can be beautiful and feel ugly because you're comparing to someone who fits current beauty standards better. You can be talented and feel worthless because someone else's talent is more recognized. It's a game you cannot win because the benchmark keeps shifting. Self-love requires stepping out of the comparison game entirely. It requires recognizing that your journey is yours alone, that other people's success doesn't diminish your worth, that there's no competition for value. Everyone is inherently worthy, including you. Your circumstances, achievements, or appearance don't change that fundamental truth. All of these barriers are real, and they're significant, but they're not permanent. You didn't build them overnight, and you won't dismantle them overnight either. But you can start. You can start recognizing the patterns, questioning the beliefs, challenging the narratives, healing the wounds. One step at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of choosing yourself at a time. Because on the other side of these barriers is a version of you who lives with self-acceptance, self-respect, and genuine self-love. And that version is worth fighting for. Self-compassion, the heart of self-love. If self-love is the foundation, self-compassion is the heart. It's the practice that makes everything else possible. And most people get this completely wrong. They confuse self-compassion with self-pity, or self-indulgence, or making excuses. It's none of those things. Self-compassion is treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer to someone you care about. It's responding to your own suffering, your own struggles, your own imperfections with warmth rather than judgment. Research in psychology, particularly the work by Dr. Kristin Neff, has shown that self-compassion is one of the most powerful predictors of mental health and well-being. Based on research findings, people with higher self-compassion experience less anxiety and depression, greater emotional resilience, more stable self-worth, and better relationships. It's not a nice-to-have, it's essential. Self-compassion has 3 core components. First, self-kindness versus self-judgment. This means being gentle with yourself when you're struggling, rather than harshly critical. When you make a mistake, when you fail, when you're going through a hard time, the self-compassionate response is understanding and patience, not attack and ridicule. You talk to yourself the way you talk to a friend, not an enemy. Think about how you respond when someone you care about is struggling. You probably don't tell them they're worthless, that they should have done better, that they're a failure. You probably offer understanding, acknowledge how hard the situation is, remind them of their strengths, encourage them to keep going. That's the voice you need to develop internally, not a voice that enables harmful behavior or avoids responsibility, but one that sees your humanity and responds accordingly. The second component is common humanity versus isolation. This is recognizing that struggle, imperfection, and failure are part of the shared human experience. You're not uniquely flawed. You're not the only one who messes up, who feels inadequate, who doesn't have it all figured out. When you're suffering, it's easy to feel isolated, like you're alone in your pain, like everyone else has it together except you. Self-compassion reminds you that's not true. Everyone struggles, everyone fails, everyone has moments of doubt and fear and insecurity. You're not separate from humanity because of your imperfections. You're connected to it. This component is crucial because isolation amplifies suffering. When you believe you're alone in your struggle, shame grows. When you recognize that what you're experiencing is part of being human, you can meet yourself with compassion rather than shame. This doesn't minimize your pain. It contextualizes it in a way that makes it more bearable. The third component is mindfulness versus over-identification. This means holding your painful thoughts and feelings in balanced awareness rather than suppressing them or getting completely consumed by them. It's acknowledging I'm feeling really anxious right now rather than I'm such an anxious person, something's wrong with me. It's creating enough space between you and your experience to observe it without being overwhelmed by it. Mindfulness in self-compassion means you don't ignore or deny difficult emotions. You also don't exaggerate them or let them define you. You notice them, you acknowledge them, you allow them to be there without judgment. This balanced perspective is what allows you to respond to yourself with compassion rather than criticism or avoidance. Now let's talk about how this actually works in daily life. Your inner dialogue shapes your reality more than you probably realize. The way you talk to yourself creates the emotional environment you live in. If that dialogue is constantly critical, harsh, and judgmental, you're living in a hostile internal environment. If it's compassionate, understanding, and kind, you're creating internal safety. Start paying attention to your self-talk, not to judge it, but to notice it. When something goes wrong, what's the first thing you say to yourself? When you look in the mirror, what's the narrative running in your head? When you're struggling, how do you address yourself? Most people would be horrified if they heard themselves speak to others the way they speak to themselves internally. When you catch yourself in harsh self-criticism, pause. Ask yourself, would I talk to a friend this way? What would I say to someone I care about in this situation? Then say that to yourself instead. This isn't about being fake or dishonest. It's about extending to yourself the same care you freely give to others. Self-compassion also means acknowledging your needs without shame. You have emotional needs, physical needs, relational needs. Those aren't weaknesses. They're part of being human. Self-compassion says it's okay to need rest, to need support, to need time alone, to need help, to need tenderness. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to not have all the answers. When you're going through something difficult, self-compassion looks like this. Instead of I should be stronger, I shouldn't be struggling with this. What's wrong with me? This is really hard right now. It makes sense that I'm struggling. I'm doing the best I can with what I have. That shift might seem small, but it's transformative. One response keeps you stuck in shame and self-attack. The other creates space for healing and growth. Self-compassion is also how you handle failure and mistakes. Everyone fails. Everyone makes mistakes. The question is, how do you respond? Do you use it as evidence that you're fundamentally inadequate, or do you see it as a learning opportunity, as part of the growth process, as proof that you're trying? Self-compassion allows you to take responsibility for your actions without destroying yourself in the process. It says, I messed up, I'll do better, and I'm still worthy of respect. One of the most powerful self-compassion practices is the self-compassion break. When you're struggling, put your hand on your heart or give yourself a gentle hug. This physical gesture activates the mammalian caregiving system and helps shift you into a more compassionate state. Then acknowledge the difficulty. This is a moment of suffering. Recognize the common humanity. Suffering is part of life. I'm not alone in this, and offer yourself kindness. May I be kind to myself, May I give myself what I need? This practice might feel awkward at first, especially if you're not used to being kind to yourself. Do it anyway. The awkwardness is just unfamiliarity. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Self-compassion doesn't mean you don't hold yourself accountable or work to improve. In fact, research suggests that self-compassion actually increases motivation and personal growth more than self-criticism does. When you're harsh with yourself, you're motivated by fear and shame. When you're compassionate with yourself, you're motivated by genuine desire to grow and by care for your well-being. One is unsustainable and harmful. The other is sustainable and healing. You can want to change things about yourself and still treat yourself with compassion. You can work toward goals and still accept yourself as you are right now. These aren't contradictory. Self-compassion creates the safe internal environment that actually allows for change. When you're constantly attacking yourself, you're in survival mode. When you're treating yourself with kindness, you have the internal resources to grow. Understanding that self-compassion is not self-pity is important. Self-pity is poor me. Why does this always happen to me? Nothing ever works out. It's a victim mentality that keeps you stuck. Self-compassion is, this is hard, I'm struggling, and I'm going to care for myself through it. It acknowledges difficulty without wallowing in it. It creates space for both pain and agency. Self-compassion is also the antidote to shame. Shame says I am bad. Guilt says I did something bad. Guilt can be productive. It can motivate repair and change. Shame is destructive. It makes you want to hide, to avoid, to punish yourself. Self-compassion addresses shame by separating your worth from your actions. You can take responsibility for harmful behavior without defining yourself by it. You can acknowledge mistakes while still seeing yourself as fundamentally worthy of compassion and growth. This practice of self-compassion is daily work. It's not something you master and then you're done. It's a continual choice, especially when things are hard, especially when you've messed up, especially when you're facing your own limitations. Those are exactly the moments when self-compassion matters most. Those are the moments that build the foundation of genuine self-love. Because self-love isn't just how you treat yourself when everything's going well. It's how you treat yourself when everything's falling apart. That's where real self-love shows up. That's where self-compassion changes everything. Building self-trust through consistent action. Here's something most people miss when they talk about self-love. It's not just about how you feel about yourself. It's about whether you trust yourself. And trust isn't built through affirmations or intentions. It's built through action, through doing what you said you'd do, especially when it's hard, especially when nobody's watching, especially when it would be easier not to. Think about trust in any relationship. How do you build it? Through consistency, through reliability, through someone showing you over and over that they keep their word, that they respect boundaries, that they show up when they say they will. The same applies to your relationship with yourself. Every time you make a promise to yourself and break it, you erode self-trust. Every time you set a boundary and don't enforce it, you teach yourself that your boundaries don't matter. Every time you say something is important and then don't act like it is, you learn that you're not someone you can count on. This matters more than you might think. Low self-trust shows up as indecision, as second-guessing yourself constantly, as looking to others for answers you should be finding within yourself. It shows up as starting things and not finishing them, as setting goals you never pursue, as making plans you don't follow through on. And underneath all of that is the unconscious belief, I can't trust myself to do what I say I'll do, so why bother trying? Building self-trust requires you to start small and be consistent. Don't make sweeping declarations about completely overhauling your life. That's setting yourself up to fail, which just reinforces the pattern of broken self-promises. Instead, pick one small commitment you can actually keep. Maybe it's drinking water first thing in the morning. Maybe it's going to bed at a certain time. Maybe it's moving your body for 10 minutes a day. Whatever it is, make it small enough that you can succeed. Then, do it. Every single day. Not when you feel like it. Every day. Because this isn't about the specific action. It's about proving to yourself that when you commit to something, you follow through. That rebuilding of reliability is everything. It's the foundation of self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of self-love. When you keep these small promises to yourself, something shifts. You start to see yourself differently. You're no longer someone who talks about change, but never changes. You're someone who commits and follows through. You're someone whose word means something, even to yourself, especially to yourself. As you build trust in the small things, you can take on bigger commitments. But don't rush this. Consistency over time matters more than intensity. It's better to do something small every day for a year than something big for a week and then quit. The daily repetition is what rewires your self-concept. It's what transforms you from someone who can't trust themselves into someone who absolutely can. Self-trust also requires honoring your boundaries. Boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about respecting yourself enough to communicate what's acceptable and what's not, and then actually enforcing those limits. When you set a boundary and then let someone cross it without consequence, you're teaching yourself that your needs don't matter. You're showing yourself that you won't protect yourself. That destroys self-trust. Setting boundaries feels uncomfortable, especially at first, especially with people you care about. You worry about being difficult, about causing conflict, about being rejected. But here's what you need to understand. A boundary that you don't enforce isn't a boundary. It's a suggestion, and people will keep crossing it until you show them, through action, that you mean it. Enforcing boundaries is an act of self-love. It's saying my peace matters, my time matters, my energy matters, and I'm going to protect those things even if it makes others uncomfortable. That's not selfishness, that's self-respect. And every time you enforce a boundary, you build trust with yourself. You prove that you'll stand up for yourself, that you won't abandon your needs to keep the peace, that you're someone worth protecting. Boundaries apply to yourself too, not just others. Maybe you know that scrolling social media for hours makes you feel worse, but you keep doing it. A boundary with yourself would be putting your phone away after a certain time. Maybe you know that staying up late affects your mental health, but you keep doing it anyway. A boundary with yourself would be prioritizing sleep. Self-trust requires that you set these internal boundaries and respect them. Decision-making is another area where self-trust matters. When you don't trust yourself, you constantly seek external validation for your choices. You ask everyone else what they think you should do. You look for signs, for permission, for someone else to make the decision for you. But nobody else can live your life. Nobody else knows your truth the way you do. And constantly outsourcing your decisions teaches you that you can't trust your own judgment. Building self-trust in decision-making means learning to sit with uncertainty and still choose. It means gathering information, considering your values, and then making the best decision you can with what you know. Not every decision will be right. Some will lead to outcomes you didn't want. That's part of life. But you learn more from making decisions and dealing with the consequences than you do from avoiding decisions entirely. When you make a decision that doesn't work out, self-trust doesn't mean beating yourself up. It means acknowledging. That didn't go as planned. Here's what I learned. Here's what I'll do differently next time. It means taking responsibility without shame. It means treating mistakes as information, not as evidence of your inadequacy. Self-trust also shows up in how you handle your own emotions. Can you trust yourself to feel what you're feeling without falling apart? Can you trust yourself to sit with discomfort without immediately seeking escape? Can you trust yourself to process difficult emotions without judgment? Or do you numb, avoid, distract, and suppress because you don't believe you can handle what you're feeling? Building emotional self-trust means allowing yourself to feel your feelings fully, knowing they won't destroy you. Emotions are temporary. They rise, they peak, they pass. When you trust yourself to navigate them without running, you stop being afraid of your own inner world. You stop avoiding situations that might bring up difficult feelings because you know you can handle whatever comes up. This trust extends to trusting your intuition. Your gut knows things your mind hasn't caught up to yet. But if you've spent your life ignoring your intuition, dismissing that inner knowing, overriding it with logic or other people's opinions, you've damaged your ability to hear it clearly. Self-trust means starting to listen again, starting to notice when something feels off, even if you can't articulate why, starting to honor those instincts even when they don't make logical sense. Your intuition is shaped by your experiences, your values, your unconscious pattern recognition. It's not infallible, but it's also not random. When you repeatedly ignore it and then discover it was right, you learn not to trust yourself. When you start listening to it and acting on it, even in small ways, you rebuild that connection to your inner wisdom. Trust is also built through taking care of your needs. Basic needs: sleep, nutrition, movement, connection, rest. When you consistently neglect these, you're telling yourself you're not worth caring for. When you prioritize them, even when it's inconvenient, even when other things seem more pressing, you're demonstrating through action that your well-being matters. It's easy to put your needs last, to stay up late, to finish one more thing, to skip meals because you're busy, to push through exhaustion because rest feels unproductive. But all of that erodes self-trust. It says my needs are negotiable. My well-being is less important than productivity, than other people's expectations, than appearing capable. That's not self-love. That's self-abandonment. Self-trust requires radical responsibility. Not blame. Responsibility. Blame says, this is someone else's fault. Responsibility says, regardless of how I got here, I'm the one who has to deal with it. Responsibility means owning your choices, your reactions, your patterns. It means stopping the victim narrative and stepping into agency. You can't build self-trust while simultaneously believing you're powerless. This doesn't mean you're responsible for things that happen to you. Abuse, trauma, systemic injustice, these aren't your fault. But how you respond to them, how you heal from them, how you move forward, that is your responsibility. Nobody else can do that work for you. And when you take full ownership of your healing and your growth, you build trust in your ability to handle your life. Part of self-trust is being honest with yourself. Not about everything being fine when it's not. Not pretending you have it all together when you're falling apart. Real honesty. Acknowledging when you're struggling, when you're scared, when you don't know what to do, when you've been avoiding something important. That level of honesty is vulnerable. It's uncomfortable, but it's the only way to build genuine self-trust. When you lie to yourself, you create internal confusion. You can't trust someone who lies to you, including yourself. So stop pretending. Stop sugarcoating. Stop avoiding uncomfortable truths. Look at your life clearly. Look at your patterns clearly. Look at your choices clearly. Not to judge, but to see. Because you can't change what you won't acknowledge. Self-trust is proven through how you show up for yourself in the hard moments. When you're tired and you still do what you committed to. When you're scared and you still take the step forward. When you want to quit and you keep going. Those moments, the ones nobody sees, those build real self-trust. Those prove to you that you're not gonna abandon yourself when things get difficult. You've probably abandoned yourself before. Most people have. You've probably let yourself down. Broken promises to yourself. Chosen comfort over growth. Backed down from your own boundaries. That's okay. That's part of being human. But you don't have to keep doing it. Starting today, you can begin rebuilding trust with yourself. One kept promise, one enforced boundary, one honest acknowledgement, one committed action. That's how it starts. That's how you become someone you can finally fully trust. Physical self-love. Honoring your body. Your body is the only place you'll live your entire life. Read that again. Your body is not something you possess. It's not separate from you. It's where you experience everything, every sensation, every emotion, every interaction. You experience it through and in your body. And yet, most people treat their bodies like an enemy, like something to be controlled, fixed, or punished. That needs to stop. Physical self-love isn't about achieving a certain appearance. It's not about fitting into a specific size or meeting some external standard of beauty. It's about honoring the miracle that is your body, treating it with respect and care, because it's keeping you alive, allowing you to experience life, carrying you through every single moment. Your body deserves love, not because of how it looks, but because of what it does for you. Think about everything your body handles without you having to consciously think about it. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are breathing. Your cells are regenerating. Your immune system is protecting you. Your nervous system is processing constant input. Your body is working for you every second of every day. And most of the time you're either ignoring it or criticizing it. That has to change. Physical self-love starts with gratitude, not forced positivity. Genuine appreciation for what your body does. Your legs carry you places. Your arms allow you to hug people you love, to create things, to care for yourself. Your hands allow you to type, to cook, to touch. Your eyes allow you to see sunsets, to read words, to look at faces of people who matter. Your ears allow you to hear music, laughter, voices. Every part of your body serves you. That deserves recognition and respect. This doesn't mean you have to love everything about how your body looks. That's a different conversation. This is about separating your body's worth from its appearance and recognizing that your body is worthy of care, simply because it's yours, simply because it's alive, simply because it allows you to exist in this world. Nourishment is a form of physical self-love. And I'm not talking about diet culture, about restricting, about earning your food through exercise, about good foods and bad foods. That whole mindset is harmful and has nothing to do with actual care. Nourishing your body means feeding it in a way that supports its functioning, that provides energy, that feels good. It means eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're full, choosing foods that make you feel alive rather than sluggish. Diet culture teaches you to distrust your body, to override its signals, to ignore hunger, to control and restrict. That's the opposite of self-love. Self-love is learning to listen to your body again, to honor its needs, to trust its wisdom. Your body knows what it needs. It tells you through hunger, through cravings, through how different foods make you feel. Physical self-love is paying attention and responding with care. Movement is self-love too, not punishment for what you ate, not a way to earn rest. Movement because it feels good, because it's what bodies are designed to do, because it releases stress and generates energy and reminds you that you're alive and capable. Find movement that you actually enjoy. Walking, dancing, swimming, yoga, strength training, whatever makes your body feel powerful and free. Don't force yourself into exercise you hate because you think you should. That's not love, that's obligation. Your body needs to move, but it also needs to rest. Rest is not laziness. Rest is necessary. Rest is when your body repairs itself, when your nervous system regulates, when your mind integrates information, when healing happens. Rest is productive, even though it doesn't look like productivity. And honoring your need for rest, for sleep, for stillness, that's profound self-love in a culture that glorifies burnout. How many hours of sleep do you actually need? Most adults need 7 to 9 hours. But based on research, Many people are chronically sleep deprived because they've internalized the idea that sleep is wasted time, that rest is for the weak, that pushing through exhaustion is admirable. It's not. It's harmful. Lack of sleep affects your mood, your cognitive function, your immune system, your physical health. Prioritizing sleep is prioritizing yourself. That's self-love. Physical self-love also means attending to pain and discomfort instead of ignoring it. Your body communicates through sensations. Pain is information. Tension is information. Fatigue is information. When you consistently override these signals, when you push through pain or ignore your body's requests for care, you're disconnecting from yourself. You're treating your body like a machine that should function regardless of its needs. Listen to your body. If something hurts, address it. If you're exhausted, rest. If you're tense, stretch. If you're hungry, eat. This seems obvious, but most people spend their lives ignoring their body's signals because they've prioritized productivity, appearance, or other people's needs over their own physical well-being. How you speak about your body matters too. The narrative you run about your body, whether out loud or in your head, shapes your relationship with it. When you constantly criticize your body, when you focus only on what you wish was different, when you compare your body to others, you create a hostile relationship with the only home you'll ever have. That's exhausting, and it's harmful. You don't have to love every part of your body's appearance to treat it with respect, but you can stop attacking it. You can stop the running commentary of criticism. You can start acknowledging what your body does well, what it allows you to experience, how it shows up for you every single day. You can shift from "I hate my body" to "my body is doing its best and I'm going to care for it." Physical self-love includes setting boundaries around how others speak about your body too. You don't have to accept comments, even if they're meant as compliments, if they make you uncomfortable. You don't have to engage in conversations that center around appearance, weight, or diet if those don't serve you. You get to decide what's acceptable when it comes to your body, and you get to enforce those boundaries. Touch is part of physical self-love too. Not necessarily in a sexual way, though that's valid too, but simple touch. Putting lotion on your skin with care. Stretching gently. Massaging tense muscles. Giving yourself a hug when you're struggling. Physical touch releases oxytocin, which supports bonding and stress relief. You can provide that for yourself. You can care for your body in ways that feel nurturing and safe. For many people, especially those who've experienced trauma or abuse, reconnecting with their body is challenging. Trauma can cause dissociation, a disconnection from physical sensations as a protective mechanism. If this resonates with you, physical self-love might require professional support. Therapy, particularly trauma-informed approaches, can help you safely reconnect with your body and rebuild that relationship with compassion and at your own pace. Your body changes throughout your life. It ages, it fluctuates, it responds to stress and illness and time. Physical self-love means accepting that your body is not static, that change is natural, that worth is not tied to maintaining a specific appearance or ability level. It means adapting your care to what your body needs now, not punishing it for not being what it used to be. Chronic illness, disability, pain. These don't disqualify you from physical self-love. In fact, they make it even more important. When your body is struggling, when it's not functioning the way you wish it would, treating it with compassion rather than resentment becomes crucial. Your body is not failing you. It's dealing with difficult circumstances. It deserves support, not blame. Physical self-love is also about pleasure, not just function. Wearing clothes that feel good on your skin, eating food that tastes delicious, moving in ways that feel joyful, creating a physical environment that feels comfortable and safe. You're allowed to pursue physical pleasure and comfort. That's not selfish or superficial. That's honoring the fact that you exist in a body, and that body experiences the world through sensation. Ultimately, Physical self-love is about treating your body as a partner, not an adversary. It's on your side. It's trying to keep you safe and healthy and alive. When you work with your body instead of against it, when you listen to it and respond with care, when you appreciate what it does for you and stop punishing it for what it's not, everything shifts. You feel more grounded, more connected, more at home in yourself. And that is the foundation for living a life that actually feels good, not just one that looks good from the outside. Emotional self-love. Validating your inner world. Your emotions are not the enemy. They're not something to suppress, override, or apologize for. They're information. They're responses to your experiences, your thoughts, your needs. And emotional self-love means learning to validate your inner world instead of judging it, to honor your feelings instead of dismissing them, to create internal space for the full range of human emotion. Most people were not taught how to handle emotions healthily. You might have grown up hearing things like "stop crying," "don't be angry," "you're too sensitive," "you're overreacting." These messages taught you that certain emotions are unacceptable, that expressing feelings is weakness, that you should be able to control or eliminate uncomfortable emotions. None of that is true. All of it is harmful. Emotions don't disappear because you ignore them. They don't go away because you pretend they're not there. They go underground. They show up in your body as tension, pain, illness. They show up in your behavior as reactivity, avoidance, passive aggression. They show up in your relationships as patterns you can't quite understand. Suppressed emotions don't vanish. They leak out sideways, often in ways that cause more problems than just feeling them in the first place would have. Emotional self-love starts with permission. Permission to feel what you feel, not what you think you should feel, not what you wish you felt, what you actually feel. Sadness, anger, fear, jealousy, shame, grief, joy, excitement, all of it is valid. All of it is part of being human. You don't need to justify your feelings to anyone, including yourself. They're not right or wrong, they just are. When an emotion shows up, the self-loving response is curiosity, not judgment. Instead of "I shouldn't feel this way," try "I'm feeling this way." What is this emotion trying to tell me? Emotions carry messages. Anger often signals a boundary violation or an unmet need. Sadness often signals loss or disappointment. Fear often signals perceived threat or uncertainty. Shame often signals a belief that you violated your own or others' standards. When you get curious about your emotions instead of immediately trying to change them, you access important information about your inner world. Validating your emotions doesn't mean indulging them or acting on every feeling impulsively. You can feel angry without yelling at someone. You can feel sad without spiraling into depression. You can feel anxious without avoiding everything that makes you nervous. Validation is simply acknowledgement. I'm feeling angry right now, and that makes sense given what just happened. That acknowledgement alone often reduces the intensity of the emotion because you're not fighting against it. Emotional self-love requires learning to sit with discomfort. Our culture promotes constant comfort, constant distraction, constant numbing. You're encouraged to immediately escape any difficult feeling through food, shopping, scrolling, substances, whatever works. But that pattern prevents you from ever developing emotional resilience. You never learn that you can handle difficult feelings, that they won't destroy you, that they pass. When you feel something uncomfortable, instead of immediately reaching for a distraction, try this. Pause. Notice the feeling. Name it if you can. Feel where it shows up in your body. Breathe into it, and just be with it for a few moments. You'll probably notice it's not as overwhelming as you feared. You'll probably notice it shifts and changes. You'll probably notice you can handle it. That builds emotional self-trust. That proves to yourself that your feelings won't break you. Creating emotional safety for yourself is crucial. This means not punishing yourself for having feelings. not shaming yourself for being affected by things, not comparing your emotional responses to others. Your emotions are shaped by your nervous system, your past experiences, your current stress levels, your biology. What triggers a big emotional response in you might not affect someone else the same way, and that's okay. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. You're having a human response. Part of emotional self-love is learning to identify and name your feelings with more nuance. Most people operate with a limited emotional vocabulary: happy, sad, angry, scared. But emotions are much more complex. You might be feeling disappointed, resentful, anxious, overwhelmed, lonely, frustrated, proud, content, grateful, peaceful. The more accurately you can name what you're feeling, the better you can understand it and respond to it appropriately. Emotional granularity, research suggests, is associated with better emotional regulation and mental health. Emotional self-love also means processing your feelings, instead of just cycling through them repeatedly. Processing means allowing yourself to fully feel the emotion, exploring what it's connected to, expressing it in healthy ways, and then releasing it. This might look like crying when you're sad, talking through your feelings with someone you trust, writing in a journal, moving your body to release tension, or creating art that expresses your inner world. You cannot think your way out of emotions. You have to feel your way through them. And that's exactly what most people avoid, because it's uncomfortable, because they're afraid of being consumed by the feeling, because they don't trust themselves to handle it. But emotions are designed to move through you. The word emotion comes from the Latin emover, meaning to move out. Emotions want to be expressed and released. When you block that natural process, you trap them inside. Emotional self-love includes allowing yourself to grieve. Grief isn't just about death. You grieve endings, losses, disappointments, the gap between what you hoped for and what actually happened. You grieve the childhood you didn't have, the relationship that ended, the version of yourself you thought you'd be by now. Grief is a natural response to loss, and it needs space. It needs time. It needs acknowledgement. You can't rush it or bypass it. You can only move through it with compassion. It also means celebrating your joy without dampening it. Many people feel uncomfortable with positive emotions too, not just difficult ones. They minimize their accomplishments. They wait for the other shoe to drop. They don't let themselves fully experience happiness or excitement because they're afraid it won't last or they don't deserve it. That's not emotional self-love. Let yourself feel good when things are good. Let yourself be excited, proud, grateful, joyful. You don't have to protect yourself from positive emotions. Boundaries apply emotionally too. You're not responsible for other people's feelings, and they're not responsible for yours. You can have compassion for someone's emotions without taking ownership of them. You can support someone without absorbing their distress. You can say, "I understand you're upset, and I can't fix this for you." That's not cold. That's recognizing that each person is responsible for their own emotional world. Similarly, you need to stop making yourself responsible for managing other people's reactions to your boundaries, your choices, your truth. If someone is hurt or angry because you said no, because you chose differently than they wanted, because you're living your life on your terms, that's their emotion to process. You can care about their feelings without changing your behavior to manage them. That's emotional self-love. That's refusing to abandon yourself to keep others comfortable. Emotional self-love is allowing yourself to change your mind, to outgrow beliefs and patterns, to evolve. You're allowed to feel differently about something than you used to. You're allowed to realize that what worked before doesn't work now. You're allowed to honor where you are emotionally today, even if it's different from where you were yesterday. Growth means change. Don't punish yourself for it. And here's something crucial. Your emotions don't define you. You can feel insecure and still be confident. You can feel afraid and still be brave. You can feel unworthy and still deserve love. Emotions are temporary experiences, not permanent identities. When you stop identifying with your emotions and start observing them, you gain freedom. You're not an anxious person. You're a person experiencing anxiety. That distinction matters. Emotional self-love also means seeking support when you need it. You're not meant to process everything alone. Therapy, trusted friends, support groups, these aren't signs of weakness. They're recognition that you deserve support, that your emotional well-being matters enough to invest in. If you're struggling with your mental health, if emotions feel unmanageable, if you're dealing with trauma, please reach out for professional help. That's one of the most loving things you can do for yourself. Your emotional world is rich and complex, and entirely yours. It deserves to be honored, not judged. It deserves space, not suppression. It deserves validation, not dismissal. When you treat your feelings with the respect they deserve, when you create safety for your full emotional experience, when you stop warring with yourself and start witnessing yourself with compassion, you transform your relationship with yourself. You become someone who can be trusted to hold space for all of who you are, and that is profound self-love. Self-love and your relationship. Here's what nobody tells you about self-love. It transforms every relationship in your life, not because you become selfish or distant, but because you stop entering relationships from a place of desperation. You stop looking for someone to complete you, to fix you, to give you the worth you should be giving yourself. And that changes everything. When you don't love yourself, your relationships become transactional. You give to get. You perform to be accepted. You mold yourself to be wanted. You abandon your truth to avoid abandonment. None of that is connection. That's survival. That's using relationships as band-aids for wounds that need actual healing. And it doesn't work. It can't work, because no external relationship can fix an internal void. Self-love changes the foundation of why you connect with people. Instead of, I need you to make me feel worthy, it becomes, I already know my worth, and I choose to share my life with you. Instead of, please don't leave me, I can't handle being alone, it becomes, I'm complete on my own, and I want you in my life. That shift from need-based to choice-based relating is transformative. Think about the relationships you've had or are in, where you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, constantly trying to prevent conflict, constantly adjusting yourself to keep the peace. That's what happens when you don't love yourself enough to risk being seen fully. You hide parts of yourself you fear might be rejected. You agree when you disagree. You stay quiet when you should speak up. And then you resent the other person for not really knowing you, when you never gave them the chance. Self-love gives you the courage to be authentic in relationships, to show up as you actually are, not as who you think someone wants you to be. And yes, that means some people won't like you. Some people will walk away. That's okay. Better to be rejected for who you are than accepted for who you're pretending to be. The relationships that survive your authenticity are the ones worth having. Boundaries in relationships become possible when you love yourself. Before self-love, you probably struggled to say no, to communicate your limits, to protect your time and energy. You probably let people take advantage of you because you were afraid that setting boundaries would push them away. But here's the truth. People who actually care about you will respect your boundaries. People who react poorly to your boundaries are showing you they valued access to you more than your well-being. That's important information. When you love yourself, you stop tolerating disrespect. You stop accepting breadcrumbs. You stop staying in relationships where you're giving everything and receiving nothing. You develop standards, not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you recognize your worth and refuse to accept less than mutual respect, care, and effort. This doesn't mean relationships become easy. They're still challenging, but the challenges are about growth and navigation. not about constantly proving your worth or fighting for basic decency. Healthy relationships have conflict, have differences, have hard conversations, but they're built on a foundation of respect, trust, and genuine care. Self-love allows you to recognize when that foundation exists and when it doesn't. Self-love also transforms how you handle rejection and endings. When someone doesn't choose you, when a relationship ends, when you're not what someone is looking for, it still hurts, but it doesn't destroy you, because your worth isn't determined by whether someone else sees it. You don't internalize rejection as evidence of your inadequacy. You recognize that compatibility matters, that timing matters, that people have their own journeys, and someone not choosing you doesn't mean you're not worthy of being chosen. The relationship you have with yourself sets the standard for how you allow others to treat you. If you speak to yourself with cruelty, you'll tolerate others speaking to you that way. If you neglect your own needs, you'll accept others neglecting them too. If you don't trust yourself, you'll constantly seek validation from others. If you don't respect yourself, you won't enforce respect from others. Everything starts with you. When you love yourself, you attract different kinds of relationships. Not perfect ones, but healthier ones. Because you're no longer drawn to people who mirror your wounds, who validate your negative self-beliefs, who allow you to play out old patterns. You start gravitating toward people who are also doing their own work, who have their own sense of self, who can meet you as an equal rather than as a project or a savior. Codependency becomes less appealing when you develop self-love. Codependency is when two people lean on each other, not from strength, but from emptiness, when they need each other to function, when they blur boundaries to the point where neither person knows where they end and the other begins. It feels intense, feels like deep connection, but it's actually enmeshment. It's two people trying to fill their voids through each other, and it's exhausting. Self-love allows for interdependence. Instead, two whole people choosing to build a life together, supporting each other without losing themselves, maintaining their individuality while creating something shared. You can be close without being fused. You can support without enabling. You can love without losing yourself. But that requires that you have a self to maintain, that you've built an identity and worth that aren't entirely dependent on the relationship. Your friendships change too. You stop keeping people around just because you've known them a long time, or because you're afraid of being alone. You start recognizing which relationships energize you and which drain you. You give yourself permission to let go of friendships that no longer serve you, that feel one-sided, that require you to be someone you're not. That's not cold. That's honoring that your time and energy are finite and valuable. Self-love helps you be a better friend, partner, family member, not because you're performing or trying to be perfect, but because you're giving from fullness rather than emptiness. When you're not constantly seeking validation, you can actually be present for others. When you're not resentful from overextending yourself, you can give freely. When you've met your own needs, you have genuine energy to support others. It also helps you take responsibility for your part in relationship dynamics. When you love yourself, you're not defensive about feedback. You can hear "that hurt me" without immediately making it about your worth. You can acknowledge your mistakes without spiraling into shame. You can apologize genuinely because you know an apology isn't an admission of being fundamentally flawed. It's recognition that you're human and you're willing to repair harm you've caused. Self-love makes you less reactive. When you're not operating from wounds, when you're not constantly triggered because everything feels like a threat to your worth, you can respond to relationship challenges with more clarity. You can have a disagreement without making it mean the relationship is over. You can receive criticism without making it mean you're worthless. You can sit in discomfort without needing to immediately fix it or escape it. Here's something important. Self-love doesn't mean you don't need people. Humans are social beings. Connection is a fundamental need. Self-love doesn't make you an island. It makes you someone who can connect from a place of choice rather than desperation, from fullness rather than emptiness. You can want someone without needing them to complete you. You can value connection without making it your entire identity. The paradox is that when you need people less, you often build stronger connections because you're not clinging, you're not desperate, you're not trying to control others to manage your own anxiety. You can let people be who they are. You can give them space. You can trust that if they choose to be in your life, it's because they want to be, not because they're obligated or because you've manipulated them into staying. Self-love also helps you recognize when you're repeating patterns from your past in your current relationships. Maybe you always end up with emotionally unavailable partners because that mirrors your early attachment experiences. Maybe you always play the caretaker because that's the role you learned gave you value. Maybe you sabotage relationships when they get too close because intimacy feels threatening. When you love yourself enough to examine these patterns honestly, you can start making different choices. And if you're in a relationship that's unhealthy, where you're being mistreated, where your boundaries are consistently violated, where you feel small, controlled, or afraid, self-love is what gives you the strength to leave. Not easily, not without pain, but with clarity that you deserve better, that no relationship is worth abandoning yourself, that being alone is better than being with someone who hurts you. The bottom line is this: every relationship in your life is influenced by your relationship with yourself. When you love yourself, you raise the standard for how you allow others to treat you. You attract healthier connections. You handle conflict better. You give and receive more authentically. You create relationships based on mutual growth rather than mutual dysfunction. And that transforms the entire quality of your life. Because the quality of your relationships significantly determines the quality of your existence. Daily practices that build self-love. Self-love isn't built in a single moment of revelation. It's built through daily practice, through small, consistent actions that accumulate over time into a completely different relationship with yourself. These aren't grand gestures. They're simple choices you make every single day that either move you towards self-love or away from it. Let's talk about practical ways to build this foundation. Start your morning with intention, not reaction. The first few minutes after you wake up set the tone for your entire day. Most people grab their phone immediately and flood their consciousness with other people's content, problems, and energy before they've even checked in with themselves. That's starting your day disconnected from yourself. Instead, before you reach for your phone, take a few moments to just be. Notice how you feel physically and emotionally. Take a few deep breaths. Set an intention for the day, not a to-do list, but a quality or state you want to embody. Morning practice could be as simple as sitting with your coffee in silence for 5 minutes. Or it could be journaling, moving your body, meditating, reading something that grounds you. The specific activity matters less than the act of starting your day connected to yourself, in your body, present to your own experience, rather than immediately absorbed in external demands. Throughout the day, check in with yourself regularly. Set reminders on your phone if you need to. Pause for just a moment and ask, how am I feeling right now? What do I need? Am I hungry, tired, overwhelmed, tense? This practice of checking in keeps you connected to your internal experience. It prevents you from going through the entire day on autopilot, disconnected from your own needs and feelings. And when you know what you need, you can actually give it to yourself. Practice speaking to yourself kindly, especially in moments of struggle or failure. Catch yourself when the critical voice starts up, and consciously choose a different response. Instead of "I'm so stupid, I can't believe I did that," try "I made a mistake and I'm learning." Instead of "I look terrible," try "I'm having a hard day with my appearance and that's okay." This isn't toxic positivity. This is treating yourself with the basic kindness you'd offer anyone else. Move your body daily in some way that feels good. Not as punishment, not to earn food or rest, but because your body is designed to move. and movement supports your physical and mental health. This could be a walk, stretching, dancing, strength training, yoga, whatever you actually enjoy. The key is consistency and the right motivation. You're moving because you care about yourself, not because you're trying to fix or punish yourself. Prioritize sleep like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. Set a bedtime and honor it. Create a wind-down routine that signals to your body it's time to rest. Turn off screens, dim lights. Do something calming. Make your sleep environment comfortable. Getting adequate sleep is one of the most fundamental acts of self-care, and one of the most commonly neglected. Feed yourself regularly and with intention. Don't skip meals. Don't ignore hunger because you're busy. Your body needs fuel. And while you don't need to eat perfectly, paying attention to how different foods make you feel and choosing nourishment most of the time is an act of self-love. Eating shouldn't be punishment or reward. It should be basic care. Set boundaries and enforce them. Every single day presents opportunities to either honor your boundaries or violate them. When someone asks for your time and you don't have it, say no. When someone crosses a line, address it. When you need space, take it. Each time you enforce a boundary, you build self-trust and self-respect. Each time you violate your own boundary to avoid conflict or gain approval, you erode self-love. Spend time alone regularly, doing something you enjoy, not just being productive. Read for pleasure. Create something. Sit outside. Listen to music. Be with yourself not because you're preparing for something or accomplishing something, but because your own company is worth enjoying. Many people avoid being alone because they don't like what comes up in the silence. But you can't build self-love while avoiding yourself. Journal, even if it's just a few sentences. Writing helps you process emotions, clarify thoughts, track patterns, and witness your own experience. You don't need to write perfectly or follow a specific format. Just get your thoughts out of your head and onto paper. This practice creates distance from your thoughts and emotions, allowing you to observe them rather than being consumed by them. Practice gratitude, but make it specific and genuine. Instead of generic "I'm grateful for my family," try "I'm grateful for the conversation I had with my friend today, where I felt really seen and understood." Instead of "I'm grateful for my health," try "I'm grateful my body allowed me to take that walk this morning." Specific gratitude connects you to actual experiences and generates more genuine positive emotion. End your day with a review, not a judgment. Before sleep, reflect. What went well today? Where did I show up for myself? What do I want to do differently tomorrow? This isn't about beating yourself up for mistakes or shortcomings. It's about conscious learning and integration. It keeps you engaged in your own growth rather than just moving through days without awareness. Seek therapy or counseling if you need support. This isn't a last resort. This is recognizing that your mental and emotional health matter enough to invest in professional help. A good therapist can help you process wounds, develop healthier patterns, and build self-awareness in ways that are difficult to do alone. There's no shame in needing support. There's wisdom in seeking it. Limit your consumption of content that makes you feel worse about yourself. Unfollow accounts that trigger comparison. Stop reading comment sections that drain your energy. Be selective about what you allow into your consciousness, because your inputs shape your internal world. You're not obligated to consume everything that's offered to you. Protect your mental space. Do one small thing every day that's just for you, that brings you joy or peace or satisfaction. It could be as simple as making your favorite tea, lighting a candle, putting on music you love, spending 10 minutes on a hobby. These small moments of pleasure matter. They remind you that your happiness and enjoyment are important, that life isn't just about productivity and obligation. Practice saying nice things to yourself. Look in the mirror and say something kind. Thank your body for what it does. Acknowledge your efforts. Celebrate your wins, even small ones. This feels ridiculous at first if you're not used to it. Do it anyway. You're literally rewiring neural pathways. Over time, it becomes more natural. Forgive yourself daily. Not for everything, not to excuse harmful behavior, but for being human, for the mistakes you made, for the ways you fell short of your own expectations, for not being perfect. Carrying shame and self-punishment doesn't make you better. It keeps you stuck. Self-forgiveness allows you to learn and move forward. Connect with people who see your worth, who support your growth, who treat you well. Invest in relationships that feel reciprocal and nourishing, and be willing to create distance from relationships that consistently drain you or require you to abandon yourself. Your relational environment significantly impacts your ability to love yourself. Do periodic reviews of your life, maybe monthly or quarterly. Sit down and assess. Am I living in alignment with my values? Are my relationships healthy? Am I treating myself well? What needs to change? This bigger picture reflection prevents you from drifting away from yourself without noticing. Celebrate your progress, not just your achievements. Notice when you handle something better than you used to. Acknowledge when you make a healthier choice. Recognize your growth, even when it's subtle. Progress isn't always visible or dramatic, but it's always worth acknowledging. These practices aren't meant to be another to-do list that stresses you out. Pick the ones that resonate and start there. 1 or 2 consistent practices matter more than 10 practices you try once and abandon. Self-love is built through repetition, through showing up for yourself day after day. Even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it, even when the results aren't immediately visible. That consistency is what transforms your relationship with yourself. That daily commitment is what creates lasting change. Becoming your own advocate. Moving forward with self-love. So here you are. You've learned what self-love actually means, what's been blocking you from it, how to cultivate self-compassion, how to build self-trust, how to honor your body and emotions, how it transforms relationships, and what practices build it daily. Now comes the real question. What are you going to do with all of this? Because information doesn't change your life. Action does. Understanding doesn't create transformation. Application does. You can know everything about self-love and still live without it if you don't make the conscious decision to become your own greatest advocate, to treat yourself like someone worth fighting for, to show up for yourself even when it's hard. Becoming your own advocate means you stop waiting for permission from others to live your life. You stop waiting for someone to choose you before you choose yourself. You stop waiting to achieve something before you decide you're worthy. You claim your worth right now, as you are, and you start acting like someone who believes it. It means you become the person who shows up for yourself when everyone else walks away. The person who believes in yourself when nobody else does. The person who protects your peace, your time, your energy like they matter because they do. You become your own safe space, your own source of validation, your own foundation. And that doesn't mean you don't need others. It means you're not dependent on others to give you what you should be giving yourself. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. You're undoing years, maybe decades of conditioning, of learned patterns, of internalized messages about your worth. Be patient with yourself. Be compassionate with yourself. This is not a linear process. You will have days where you slip back into old patterns, where the critical voice is loud again, where you abandon yourself to keep the peace. That's normal. That's part of the process. What matters is that you notice it and come back to yourself. Again and again, you come back. Self-love is not a destination you reach, and then you're done. It's a practice you engage in for the rest of your life. There will always be new layers to uncover, new wounds to heal, new patterns to shift. And that's okay. Growth is ongoing. Healing is ongoing. The commitment to yourself is ongoing. What changes is that it gets easier. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. The more you choose yourself, the more automatic that choice becomes. You're going to face resistance from yourself, from your old patterns, from people who were comfortable with the version of you who didn't have boundaries. Some people won't like the changes. Some people will try to pull you back to who you used to be because that version was easier for them. Don't let external resistance stop your internal transformation. This is your life. These are your choices. You're the one who has to live with the consequences of abandoning yourself or loving yourself. Choose wisely. The commitment you're making is this. No matter what happens externally, no matter who stays or goes, no matter what you achieve or fail at, you will not abandon yourself. You will show up for yourself with honesty and compassion. You will treat yourself with respect. You will prioritize your well-being. You will honor your needs. You will speak to yourself kindly. You will set and enforce boundaries. You will choose yourself daily. That commitment is not selfish. It's necessary, because you cannot build a meaningful life on a foundation of self-rejection. You cannot create healthy relationships when you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself. You cannot give from an empty cup. You cannot expect others to value you when you don't value yourself. Everything starts with you. Everything comes back to how you see yourself, treat yourself, love yourself. Imagine who you could become if you stopped fighting against yourself and started supporting yourself. If you treated yourself with the same care you give to others. If you spoke to yourself with kindness instead of cruelty. If you honored your needs instead of ignoring them. If you set boundaries instead of accepting everything. If you trusted yourself instead of doubting every move. Who would you be if you truly deeply loved yourself? That version of you is possible. That version is already inside you, waiting for you to give yourself permission to become them. And the path there is not complex. It's choosing yourself daily, in big ways and small ways, over and over, until it becomes who you are. You are worthy of love, not because of what you do, not because of how you look, not because of what you achieve. You're worthy because you exist, because you're human, because your worth is inherent, not earned. And the sooner you accept that truth and start living like you believe it, the sooner your entire life transforms. This is not about becoming perfect. This is about becoming real, about being authentic, about accepting all of who you are with compassion. This is about stopping the war with yourself and choosing peace instead. This is about recognizing that you deserve the same love, respect, and care you so freely give to others. Your relationship with yourself is the longest relationship you'll ever have. Make it a good one. Make it a kind one. Make it one where you show up, where you keep your promises, where you treat yourself like you matter, because you do. You matter more than you probably let yourself believe. And learning to love yourself is not optional if you want to live a life that feels good from the inside out. So start today, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Today, start small, start messy, start imperfect. Just start. Choose one practice from what we've discussed and commit to it for a week. Then add another, then another. Build slowly, but build consistently. And pay attention to what shifts. Pay attention to how you feel when you keep promises to yourself, when you enforce a boundary, when you speak to yourself kindly. Notice the change. And when you slip up, because you will, don't use it as evidence that you can't do this. Use it as information. What pulled you back into old patterns? What do you need to do differently? Then try again. Self-love is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about coming back to yourself over and over again, no matter how many times you've walked away. Remember, you are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not too broken. You are not unworthy of love. Those are lies you've believed, wounds you've carried, patterns you've learned. They are not truth. The truth is that you are human, beautifully imperfect, worthy of compassion and care, capable of healing and growth, and you deserve to love yourself, not someday when you've fixed everything, but right now, exactly as you are. This journey of self-love will change your entire life. It will change how you show up in the world. It will change what you tolerate and what you reject. It will change your relationships, your choices, your peace of mind. It will change how you experience being alive. Because when you love yourself, you're no longer at war with the person you spend every moment with. You're no longer carrying shame, self-hatred, or the desperate need for external validation to feel okay. You become your own foundation. And from that foundation, you can build anything. So this is where we end, but also where you begin. You have everything you need to start building real self-love. You have the understanding, the practices, the awareness. Now you need the commitment, the daily choice, the persistent action. And I'm telling you, if you commit to this, if you truly choose yourself day after day, your life will transform in ways you cannot yet imagine. You are worth the effort. You are worth the discomfort of change. You are worth the work of healing. You are worth every moment you invest in building a loving relationship with yourself. Do not let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise. Learn to love yourself more than anyone else. Not because other people don't matter, but because you cannot give what you don't have. Not because relationships aren't important, but because the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you're worthy of the same love you so readily give away. Start now. Choose yourself. Build self-love. One choice, one practice, one moment at a time. Your future self will thank you. Your present self deserves it. And the life waiting for you on the other side of genuine self-love is worth every step of this journey. If you found value in this message, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the change you seek starts within you. It starts with loving yourself enough to actually do the work. Go build that foundation. You've got this. Overcoming self-sabotage and building consistency. One of the biggest obstacles to self-love that people don't talk about enough is self-sabotage. You might say you want to change. You might even start making progress, but then something happens. You pull back. You quit. You revert to old patterns right when things start getting good. This isn't weakness. This is a protective mechanism that needs to be understood and addressed. Self-sabotage shows up when growth feels threatening to your identity. If you've spent years seeing yourself as unworthy, as broken, as not enough, then genuinely changing that threatens your sense of self. It's disorienting. Your brain prefers the familiar, even when the familiar is painful, because at least it's known. So when you start acting differently, treating yourself better, making healthier choices, part of you panics and tries to pull you back to what feels safe. This often happens right when you're making real progress. You finally set a boundary, and someone respects it. You stick to a new habit for 2 weeks. You start feeling better about yourself. And then seemingly out of nowhere, you do something that undermines all of it. You break the boundary. You abandon the habit. You engage in harsh self-criticism. You make a choice you know isn't aligned with your growth. And then you beat yourself up for it, which just reinforces the original belief that you can't change. Understanding self-sabotage removes the shame from it. You're not weak for sabotaging yourself. You're responding to deep programming that believes keeping you small keeps you safe. The work is to recognize when it's happening and choose differently anyway. When you notice the pull to quit, to revert, to undermine yourself, that's not a sign to give in. That's a sign you're touching something real, something that matters, something worth continuing. Self-love requires consistency, and consistency is where most people fail, not because they don't know what to do, but because they don't stick with it long enough for it to become natural. They start strong, they do well for a few days or weeks, and then life gets hard or busy or stressful, and they abandon the practices that were helping them. They tell themselves they'll get back to it when things settle down, but things never settle down. That's life. Consistency means showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Think about how you build any skill. You don't practice once and master it. You practice repeatedly, imperfectly, sometimes frustratingly, until gradually it becomes easier and more natural. Self-love is the same. The practices that build it, checking in with yourself, speaking kindly, setting boundaries, honoring your needs, they feel awkward and difficult at first. Your brain hasn't built the pathways for them yet, but with repetition, they become more automatic. With consistency, they become who you are. One major barrier to consistency is all or nothing thinking. You decide you're going to meditate every day, eat perfectly, exercise regularly, journal, set boundaries, and immediately stop all self-criticism. That's setting yourself up to fail. You can't overhaul your entire life overnight. And when you inevitably can't maintain that level of change, you tell yourself you failed and you quit everything. That's not failure. That's unrealistic expectations. Start smaller. Pick one practice and do it consistently for a month before adding another. Maybe it's 5 minutes of journaling every morning. Maybe it's one boundary you're going to enforce. Maybe it's catching yourself once a day when you're being self-critical and choosing a kinder response. Small, consistent actions build momentum. They create evidence that you're capable of change. They rewire your brain and your self-concept. And unlike dramatic overhauls that last a week, small, consistent changes last. Another aspect of consistency is continuing even when you don't see immediate results. Self-love doesn't produce instant transformation. You're not going to do these practices for a week and suddenly love yourself completely. It's gradual, it's subtle, and for a while it might feel like nothing's changing. But that's when most people quit. They don't see fast results, so they assume it's not working. They give up right before the shift would have happened. Trust the process even when you can't see the progress. Trust that every time you show up for yourself, you're building something. Every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you're creating change at the neural level. Every time you enforce a boundary, you're teaching yourself you matter. Those changes are cumulative. They're compounding. You might not notice them day to day, but if you look back over months, you'll see how far you've come. Accountability helps with consistency. This doesn't mean you need someone monitoring your every move. It means finding ways to track your efforts and remind yourself of your commitment. Maybe that's a journal where you write one thing you did for self-love each day. Maybe it's a habit tracker on your wall. Maybe it's a weekly check-in with a friend where you share how you're doing with your growth. External structures support internal commitment, especially in the beginning when the new patterns aren't automatic yet. You also need to plan for setbacks. You will have days when you fall back into old patterns. You will mess up. You will abandon yourself sometimes. That's guaranteed. The question is how you respond when that happens. Do you use it as evidence that you can't change and give up? Or do you see it as a normal part of growth and recommit? Self-love means treating yourself with compassion, even when you fail at self-love. It means getting back up, trying again, learning from what happened, and continuing forward. Setbacks often provide valuable information if you're willing to look at them honestly. What triggered the reversion to old patterns? What need weren't you meeting? What support was missing? What belief got activated? When you examine setbacks with curiosity instead of judgment, you learn what you need to address to sustain your growth. That learning makes you stronger, makes the next attempt more successful. One pattern that destroys consistency is the belief that you need to feel motivated to take action. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes based on your mood, your energy, external circumstances. If you only act when you feel motivated, you'll be inconsistent. Discipline is what creates results. Discipline is choosing the action regardless of how you feel. You brush your teeth not because you feel motivated, but because it's part of your routine, part of how you care for yourself. That's how self-love practices need to function eventually. In the beginning, you might need motivation, willpower, conscious effort for every choice. But the goal is to build these practices into your routine until they become automatic, until they're just what you do. That transition takes time and repetition. It takes doing it, even when you don't feel like it enough times, that eventually you just do it without thinking. That's when self-love becomes stable, when it's not dependent on how you feel in any given moment, but is simply how you live. Remember that consistency doesn't mean perfection. You don't need to do everything perfectly every day. You need to show up imperfectly, but regularly. You need to keep trying, keep practicing, keep choosing yourself, even when it's messy. Self-love isn't about flawless execution. It's about persistent commitment. It's about refusing to abandon yourself, even when you mess up. That refusal to give up on yourself, that persistent showing up, that is self-love in action. The path to self-love is not linear. You'll have periods of rapid growth and periods where it feels like you're stuck. You'll have breakthroughs and setbacks. You'll take steps forward and steps back. That's normal. That's how transformation works. Don't let the non-linear nature of the process discourage you. Keep going, keep practicing, keep choosing yourself. Because every single effort, even the ones that feel insignificant, is building the foundation of genuine self-love. Final thoughts. Your commitment to yourself starts now. You've made it through this entire exploration of self-love. You understand what it really means, what's been blocking you, how to practice self-compassion, how to build self-trust, how to honor your physical and emotional self, how it transforms relationships, what daily practices build it, and how to overcome self-sabotage. Now comes the most important part, actually doing it. Information without action is just entertainment. You can know everything about self-love and still live without it if you don't make the commitment to practice it daily. And that commitment isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily choice. It's waking up every morning and choosing yourself again. It's facing challenges and choosing yourself again. It's messing up and choosing yourself again. The power isn't in perfect execution. The power is in persistent return. Think about where you are right now in your relationship with yourself. Be honest. How do you really treat yourself? How do you speak to yourself? How do you handle your needs, your emotions, your boundaries? If you're brutally honest, you'll probably see areas where you're still abandoning yourself, still prioritizing others over your own well-being, still accepting less than you deserve. That awareness isn't meant to shame you. It's meant to show you where the work needs to happen. Self-love is the most important relationship you'll ever build. It's more important than your romantic relationships, your friendships, your family connections, your career. Because the quality of all those things is determined by the quality of your relationship with yourself. When you love yourself, you show up differently in every area of life. You make better choices. You set healthier boundaries. You attract better people. You handle challenges more effectively. Everything improves when you improve your relationship with yourself. But it requires commitment. Real commitment. Not the kind where you're all in for a week and then forget about it. The kind where you keep showing up even when it's hard, even when you don't see immediate results, even when old patterns are pulling at you. This is long-term work. This is lifelong work. And it's worth every ounce of effort. Because the payoff is a life that feels good from the inside out, not just one that looks good from the outside. You are worth the effort. You are worth the discomfort of change. You are worth the time investment. You are worth prioritizing. Don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise. You deserve to live in a body you respect, with a mind that treats you kindly, in relationships that honor you, pursuing goals that matter to you. But none of that happens until you decide you're worth it and start acting like you believe it. The journey starts today. Not someday. Not when you're ready. Not when you've achieved certain things. Today, right now, with all your flaws and imperfections and unhealed wounds, you don't need to wait to be worthy of love. You already are. The work is learning to believe that and live accordingly. So make the commitment. Commit to learning to love yourself more than anyone else. Commit to showing up for yourself daily. Commit to treating yourself with the kindness and respect you deserve. Commit to building the practices that create genuine self-love. And commit to continuing even when it's hard, even when you fail, even when you don't feel like it. That commitment will change your life.